obvious place to start would be a little bit of background on Infrassist as a company, sort of when it was founded, why, and what have been some of the milestones to date.
Sure. So, Infrassist is a pure white labeled service provider for MSPs. We aim to leverage and master technology and the human talent that can help MSPs scale their operations, right? So we act as a catalyst and provide next generation solutions to the MSPs that help them optimize, automate, and scale their business, right? And we are headquartered in India. We have a branch office or a sales office in Australia and UK. And we have clients across the globe, including more than 18 countries of the globe. So we work with close to 100 MSPs by offering them various services that can provide them a bit of free time so that they can focus on more important areas of business, like meeting a new client or onboarding a new client or doing a new product certifications, things like that.
Okay, yeah, so in terms of the portfolio, I think we'll drill down in it, but just can you give us a sort of broad overview of the solutions you offer, and then we can talk a little bit about each of those in turn?
Sure. So our portfolio includes two main categories. One is NOC and help desk, and the other is professional services. Now, there are a lot of services that falls under these two broad categories. When you talk about NOC, so we have a team of engineers, NOC engineers that work 24/7 across the globe. So they offer monitoring and remediation services, looking after the infrastructure of MSP's customers to make sure that the business is going as usual. And then we also provide dedicated technicians. So if an MSP is looking for an L1 or an L2 engineer, we provide them with a resource that works with an MSP sitting in our office, but he's like dedicated to that particular MSP. Now, there are a lot of MSPs that tell us that I need an L1 resource, but after office hours, like especially in the US. So they look for MSP, they look for a dedicated resource which works 5 p.m. their time. So it's like morning our time, but then we try to cater that requirement so that they provide 24/7 availability to their end customers, right? So these are the kind of packages we try to deliver to the managed service providers to win the customers. And then the other part I mentioned about is the professional services. So we do a lot of ad hoc projects, mainly focused on Microsoft technologies like Intunes, virtual desktops, migrations, and also like firewall audit, RMM audit, M365 audit. So any project or engagement where you need a one-time, kind of engagement that falls under our professional services team.
Okay, and I'm right in thinking you also do IT infrastructure management. Is that as sort of a third string, or does that come under the professional services heading? Or?
Yeah, so it's a subcategory of the professional services arm. So any third party, product that needs to be integrated with Microsoft or an RMM. So like multi-factor authentication products, we try to integrate with M365 solutions. Like recently, we did a project where Apple Business Manager, a client had all their employees on Mac. So they had Apple Business Manager in their network, and that needs to be integrated with M365. So we do these kind of projects as well.
Okay, and in terms of the future, you've outlined quite a comprehensive portfolio there, but do you have any plans to sort of grow any of these? So you either do something completely different or just add services to, whether it's professional services or, as you say, the support service around the NOC and the help desk. Any plans that you can share with us?
So we are looking at adding a few services, but that will ultimately fall under either NOC or the PS team, right? So we are looking at adding just for this particular financial year, we are looking at adding SOC services for SMB clients or SMB MSPs, because SOC is a very specialized skill. And generally the SMB customers or the SMB ecosystem cannot afford SOC services, or they cannot hire threat analyst, for example. So we are trying to come up with a service which can, provide, the security layer to the SMB ecosystem as well.
Okay, and in terms of how you sort of engage with MSPs, it'd be good to understand a bit in terms of from the initial sort of process of onboarding and how you support them, because obviously once you've got them on board, how you support them on an ongoing basis, because for them, obviously they're dealing with customers, so they need to be confident that they can rely on you to do what's required on behalf of their customers.
Sure. So we call them MSP, but as you know, every MSP has a different function. They have different tools, they have different systems, they have different processes to manage their customers. So there is no one size fit all approach here. Every MSP needs some tweaking here and there. So we call it a tailored approach that we give to every MSP. So before we onboard a client, we focus a lot on understanding what their current tools are, how they function, what is the SLA, what is the reporting mechanism, what is the ticketing system, things like that we need to cater to. So going through their existing products and tools that they are using plays a very important role whenever we onboard a new MSP. And then once we understand what tools they have in place, then we focus on what exactly is the job description of an engineer. Let's say if we are talking of an L1 engineer in this case, then what exactly needs to be delivered? What is the definition of done? What are the communication tools that the engineer would be using? What is the reporting? Who is the reporting manager? So things like that. We try to understand all these parameters, all these essential parts of integrating ourselves with an MSP's business. So that is very critical. And then once we have all these things in place, then we actually start the work. And then initially a team lead gets involved with the client, understanding if there are any gaps. So we have a bi-monthly call with our customers, and also a customer success manager jumps on the call as well from our side. So we try to identify if there are any gaps, if there is anything that we need to do in a different way. If there are any challenges on our side, then we also try to present them to the MSPs. So communication plays a very important part here, and we focus a lot on that, and ensuring that the initial 2 to 3 months are very critical whenever we onboard a new client. However, after that, the process is quite smooth.
Okay, and in terms of customers, I mean, you potentially can't name names, but it'd be good to understand. Maybe I think you just referenced there. I mean, in the publishing world, we all use Apple Macs, so we understand how difficult it can be to integrate Apple technology with Microsoft, which you just alluded to. But it'd be good to understand maybe a couple of customer cases where projects you've worked on, how you've helped MSPs with particular solutions, if you can.
Okay, so there was a bank and they were using Okta MFA product, if you have heard about them. So it's a very unique product, mainly used by enterprise customers. And they had that particular MFA product implemented in their system years ago. Now they did not wanted to get rid out of that. And they wanted to integrate that particular product with M365 tenant. So that was a bit of challenge where we were trying to understand what their current systems is, what the APIs are provided by the vendors. So we got in touch with the vendor as well. We try to understand, what is the documentation that is available, what changes or customization we can do on their product. So things like that. And then once we have everything in place, then usually an architect gets involved. In our case, he tries to create the whole architecture of the project, and then we try to slowly execute it. So, like I mentioned, the IT automation or infrastructure management services that you asked about. So these are the kind of projects that we do in this particular service. So any product that you have in your network, If there is an integration possible, we will try to do it.
Okay, and then perhaps sort of as we're finishing, it'd be good to understand when MSPs are evaluating companies such as yourself and the portfolios, are there any bits of advice you give? What sort of things should they look out for, as a checklist when they're talking to companies like yourselves, so that they can try and ensure that they get the best possible solution, the best possible relationship with a potential supplier of services to them?
So there is one more category of service providers where they do staff augmentation, if you have heard about them. So they literally give you a resource. Now it is your responsibility as an MSP to manage that resource. If the resource is not performing, they will replace that resource. Now these are the kind of companies that might give you an affordable resource, or let's say a resource with a little bit of lower price, but then the entire ownership is on you as an MSP. Now you are doing outsourcing to save time. If you have to manage a resource who is, let's say, 5,000 miles away, you are spending more time training and onboarding that particular resource. So working with a white label solution providers like Infrassist, you are not outsourcing or working with a particular engineer. You are working with a team in our case. So we have team of firewall experts, RMM experts, Microsoft experts. We have a NOC team that does the monitoring and remediation task. So if you're working with a company like us, which has expertise in different technologies and tools, whose engineers are certified, which has got an ISO accreditation, which states that they are working on a particular standard. So these are the kind of, I think, checklist, if you go through, you will be really able to narrow down a good service provider with whom you can scale up your operations. And the main objective of outsourcing is to firstly save time, and second is cost. So I think both of the objectives can be achieved if you're working with a white labeled service providers as compared to a staff augmentation company.
Okay, that's great. I think it's covered the questions I had. So Alkesh, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.